Welcome to MedAxiom HeartTalk, where thought leaders come together for one ultimate goal: to continually transform cardiovascular care for all. MedAxiom HeartTalk starts now.
On this MedAxiom Heart Talk, we are talking with one of our partners, CardioOne. Joining us now, we have Alex Struck, the Chief Growth Officer, and Dan Jensen, the Chief Financial Officer. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so we are talking with our partners about solutions that some of our physicians can take advantage of. So they know the answer, but from your perspective, let's hear what are some of the challenges that independent cardiologists are facing today.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. I think at the highest level, it's really a math problem. I think, you're obviously seeing declining reimbursement, cuts to Medicare reimbursement, commercial reimbursement following suit, and at the same time, rising cost inflation. I think that cost inflation can be exacerbated by operational inefficiencies. I think inefficiencies with running your practice, with technology, et cetera. I think independent practitioners are getting squeezed. So that math problem is forcing them to look for alternative solutions. Historically, starting in 2008, we saw a lot of them being bought out by a hospital or affiliating with one. More recently, you've seen, I think, a proliferation of private equity models to solve that. I think what we built with CardioOne was sort of a new option where groups could retain their independence but still get the operational know-how and expertise of a large company.
Yeah, and I think in addition to the financial challenges, you've just got an increasing amount of administrative burden that's falling, and particularly on independent doctors, to just do the blocking and tackling of running a business, much less of medical practice. And that's not going anywhere. I think that's becoming much more challenging. And then people really want to have autonomy as well. They want to continue to practice medicine in a way that's very patient-friendly, providing great care. And there's a lot of really cool things that are happening in the clinical space. So I think being able to move fast enough to keep up with that as well.
Yeah, I think all our physicians watching now are shaking their head very hard that you all definitely understand the challenges. Can you summarize the key trade-offs between hospital employment and maintaining a private practice ownership?
Yeah, I think, with anything, there's trade-offs, as you mentioned. And I think in the independent practice world, there are some great trade-offs. I think folks feel the autonomy of running their own practice, making their own clinical decisions, being able to build a really great culture, not just within the physicians and the clinical team, but also with the administrative team and with their patients. Some of the trade-offs is it's tough. It's not easy to run a practice. It's administratively burdensome. But I think that's where someone like CardioOne and a support structure is almost necessary to make sure that the physicians can focus on taking care of patients, building that type of culture, and then really have a partner that can focus on some of the other areas.
All right. Looking at the recent surge in private equity activity, what are some of the potential options for cardiologists today? And then how does CardioOne kind of fit in that equation?
Yeah, sure. I think today you see 80% plus of cardiologists in some sort of employment model. Vast majority of that is in the health system, right? So I think in terms of options today, you have existing independent groups. Their options are to fight the good fight, try to stay independent, try to solve a lot of the issues that we were just talking about. For the groups in employment models, historically it was, do I stay in this employment model, continue working within the hospital? More recently, there's been a surge in private equity investors who could support, the build of a new practice. I think where CardioOne fits into the equation is even in that private equity model, you are basically moving from one employment model to another one. I think, albeit there's great benefits, more autonomy, more flexibility within that model. With CardioOne, it's, I think we call it true independence. They're full owners of the practice. There's no compensation scrape. There's no restrictive covenants. And the relationship between CardioOne and the practice is symbiotic. So, I think we do well when they do well. Incentives are perfectly aligned. And they want to keep working with us because of the value that we're driving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, delve a little bit more into how in this environment that kind of frees up the cardiologist to focus on clinical care.
Yeah, look, I think most physicians, whether they be within an employed model or independent, are spending a lot of hours after hours getting stuff done. I think just giving some time back to a physician to focus on patients and the things that are going to drive better patient care is really a big part of the equation. One of our first partners was spending a day and a half on administrative duties just to run our practice, and we were able to reduce that to be something more of like a half a day or maybe a quarter of a day. That's real time that she can spend focusing on the patients that she has or helping grow her practice.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked a lot about burnout for physicians too, so they can even focus a little on themselves and have more time for family and other activities.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's just a lot of clicks. There's a lot of things that these physicians have to do, even outside of the administrative side, just the clinical side. So just making sure they've got the right tools to care for patients. I think there's, technology, there's the right people, the right process you've got to get in place to make sure that ultimately their time is being used in the best place possible, and that's spending time with patients.
Mm-hmm. So CardioOne recently took a group of employed docs private. So what have you seen in the market in terms of this transition, and how's CardioOne supporting that?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to our group in New Hampshire. They were fully employed by a hospital. Within 6 months, we took them from fully hospital employed to fully independent. They own their entire group. They make all the strategic, operational, and clinical decisions, and we support them. So I think, we're there in the board meetings. We kind of play the role of an advisor. So we arm them with the data to make smart decisions. At the end of the day, they're making the ultimate decisions. Since we did that, our pipeline of potential groups to work with went from being almost entirely groups who were an existing independent practice, so an independent practice that's been around and wanted help with the blocking and tackling of running things. Now over 50% of our pipeline are groups that are currently employed by a health system saying, I want to take back my practice. I want my autonomy. I no longer want to be told how many minutes I can spend with a patient or or how to staff my team. So I think we're seeing a big shift in the market. Looking to the future, there's some big potential tailwinds for, I think more employed cardiologists moving out of health systems. So we're keeping a close eye on things like site neutrality, and other, tailwinds that could potentially, create a big change in the structure of the market today.
Did you say how long that took to be able to get them into their own private practice?
That one, we, engaged with them last April, and they launched in September. Wow. That was a fast time frame.
Is so
we
fast.
Recommend a little bit longer these days, but
what did that process look like? I know we don't have all day, but it does sound pretty amazing.
Yeah, one is all the things, right? We've got to stand up our relationships with our payer contracts. We've got to stand up capabilities like revenue cycle management and staff and people ops management. We've got to go out and hire a workforce, which is not easy to do these days. We've got to make sure that we are working with the facilities that they're leaving to make sure we're still coordinating, because most of these folks are doing work back in those hospitals still. And I think that's something we're really proud of. We still have a great relationship with the facilities that they work in, and we were able to really transition it and make it a seamless transition for the patients. I think that's the hardest part about this. If I'm a patient, I'm going to go see my doctor, and I go see him the next day. I'm just thinking I'm seeing my doctor,
right.
but you're realizing all this stuff's happening in the background, and I think if you can do that without the patient really recognizing that, that's a great day for the patient, right? They just want to spend time with their doctor and get cared for. But yeah, the devil's in the details though, because it's not an easy thing to do. There's a reason why a lot of folks don't make that leap. I think, again, having a trusted partner to make sure that you're really diving into the details, you're giving yourself the proper timelines to do it, because there is a too short of timeline and there's too long of a timeline to make sure you land it. And I think, ultimately, having a trusted partner that's got the capabilities and experience to kind of know what to do and what not to do makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think you nailed it too, when the patient doesn't see it, and then they just get to experience and have a good physician and good experience, and that's everything. Yeah. All right, so Alex and Dan with CardioOne, thank you so much for joining us on this Heart Talk.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.